Welcome to Product by Design with Kyle and Eva,
a podcast about product management and product design,
where we'll talk about subjects from product strategy to inclusive design.
Every episode, we just have a good conversation about all the things that you may already know or not know, and occasionally we'll have a guest from maybe engineering or other product managers and designers to talk about all these topics.
All right, welcome to another episode of Product by Design. And today we have another special guest with us, Piyali Dey, and we are super excited. And by we, I mean me, because we don't have Eva with us right now, but fortunately we do have Piyali. So welcome to the podcast today, Piyali. How are you doing?
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me. I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I am doing really good. And I'm so excited to have you on and to be talking product with you today. And you are up in Vancouver. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. We just had like the super famous heat wave.
Okay.
Northwest. Yeah.
So the heat wave has hit you too. Now, what is the heat wave in Vancouver? Because I feel like it's a little bit more temperate there. Is that right?
It's pretty much, it's like Seattle, Portland area,
Okay.
Pretty mild, I would say. It doesn't snow that bad, but for 4 days we had like over 100 degree, like Fahrenheit temperature. It was really bad.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so I was reading about it, and like people in Seattle and Portland and those areas it was like really bad because a lot of folks there just don't have like air conditioning or like the ability to cope with the extreme heat just because they're not prepared for it. Is that the same case in Vancouver?
Same case here, yeah, because we have never had this kind of extreme temperatures before. So most of the houses, like the old architectures, they are not equipped with it. We don't have air conditioning. We do have like furnace, like heating system, but not cooling system because it's just so rare. But I think it's all because of the, climate change and global warming, that things are changing like really bad, really for bad. So yeah, like people, we have had, I think 10 or 15 people died because of this, like over 4 days, which is like bad enough. And then COVID. So things are pretty stressed in the community.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But we are out of it, so that's the good news.
Okay.
we shouldn't start this podcast with such a heavy and gloomy note, but we are out of it. So the good weather is back again. So people are enjoying summer. Yes.
Nice. Okay. So you're back enjoying the good summertime.
Yes.
That's good. We're not. So I feel like we're still in like 100-degree weather. So like we're more prepared for it. It's still terrible, but our weather station outside has been like at 100 degrees for like the past few weeks. It's been pretty rough, but we do have air conditioning. So I guess, that's the fortunate part. But we may have to make a trip up to Vancouver because I don't know. It sounds like it's a little bit more mild when it's not the heat wave and 100-degree weather. Is it 80 degree right now or?
Yeah, 80 degrees and like sometimes like 75 to 82 is like the average. And summer is awesome here. It's really beautiful.
That sounds amazing.
So once the border opens up, yes, you should come and visit Vancouver. Definitely.
Okay. That sounds perfect. Love it. So I should introduce you a little bit more formally. Again, I'm super excited to have you on and talk to you more because you are a product manager at Microsoft and on the board of directors at a nonprofit called ProductBC. And I'll pull a few bullet points from your bio, which we have linked in the show notes, and you can kind of build on this a little bit for us. But you've got a 10-month-old, you've got some puppies, and you are involved in a whole bunch of different things within the tech community, an advocate for diversity and equality in tech, which we'll talk more about. and you do major events, speaking for women in engineering at conferences and things like that. So super excited to have you on. I think we're going to have an amazing conversation talking about product management, inclusion, diversity, just some really, really awesome topics. But I'll let you kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself and touch on a little bit more of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Super excited to be here as well. I am originally from India, so I'm a first generation immigrant. I moved from India to US back in 2011 when I actually came to do my master's in computer science. So I came to the US to study as a student. So then I finished my degree and I started working. I spent around 6 years as a software engineer working for different enterprise companies and startup all over US. Then I moved to product from software engineering. Then I also had a job as customer success manager. So like talking to customers and figuring out what are they actually asking for, like how to conduct good customer interviews. Those are some of the things that I learned on my job, which I think was super useful when I decided to take on the product role. So I joined Microsoft back in 2019. So it's like around 2.5 years. And I'm really fortunate to kind of work with a couple of teams within the company. I have been previously, so coming to this product management role, I was a developer advocate. So in developer relations, talking about Azure and that's when I started doing a lot of public speaking. I traveled all across North America to talk about Azure with our startup community, students, universities, professional developers. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, now I'm in the product role. I work in a product called Azure Communication Services, which is Microsoft's new offering for communication platform as a service. So we have like a lot of good things to talk about, but we can get to that later. But the other thing is you mentioned diversity and inclusion. So I wanted to bring it up for a little bit. I'm super passionate about that area as well. I started doing initiatives on this back when I was in graduate school. So it's been almost 10 and 11 years I'm into this domain doing different kinds of, initiatives. I am a part of Google's Women Tech Makers group. That's a platform to encourage women in tech to, work with high school girls to encourage them to take up computer science in college. So I've been working with them for like last 5-6 years. When I say working, it's not like for-profit working, but I volunteer my time and I mentor a lot of women, young girls all over the America to kind of help them see that what is possible going forward, bringing them some visibility on what could happen if you take like computer science in college. And so I feel I take this very personally because I feel I'm very privileged in a way that I was able to move halfway across the world and came down here to study and see the world in a very different way. So I want to give it back to our community. So yeah, I've been keynoting in a lot of conferences since then. So yeah, heavily involved. I kind of think of it as my second job, but I spend a lot of my evenings and weekends, working on these initiatives.
That's so great. Okay, we've got so much to unpack here, and I'm so excited because I think this is so good. But first, you mentioned two puppies. So what kind of puppies do you have?
Yeah, so I have two. So one is an Australian cattle dog. Okay. And the other one is a mix of German Shepherd and I think American Staffordshire Terrier. So a mix of Shepherd and Terrier. I actually adopted both of them. So they are 6 years old right now. yeah, like they're like kind of like the love of my life up until I had my daughter. I should mention this.
Yep.
So now they are like second in position.
Yeah.
But I had my daughter last year in the midst of pandemic. So she's 10 months old now. So that was another experience of my life that I had to unfold. Pandemic, social isolation, and my family couldn't come to help me out because of the travel restrictions. So that was a whole different story. But yeah, it was very difficult time.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, man. I feel like we could dive into just like so many different areas of that, just COVID itself and like the family aspect. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Other things. So I guess, are there any other things outside of like the product world that you enjoy doing before we kind of dive into all of the product specific things?
Yeah, like fun stuff. So I absolutely love cooking. I am a big time foodie myself, and me and my husband, we are kind of like hobby chefs. So if you are over here at our house over a weekend, there are probably like 10 different things in cooking right now. So we experiment with a lot of different foods. So cooking is a big time stress buster for me. And I am an avid reader. I read a lot of books, not like ebooks, but really like hard copy paperback books. So yeah, like I usually try to read 2 books a month, but after my daughter was born, the speed kind of has slowed down. But and I don't really have any like particular genre that I focus into, but I love to read about pretty much anything, starting from history, music, literature, science, technology. But I just love reading. So I used to write a lot as well. I had blogs, but because of COVID and, working from home, the equation is kind of stressed right now. So I've been not, I have not been very regular to my blogs yet, but yeah, I still read, I cook, and hiking. I love a lot of like outdoor activities. I go on biking. So yeah, that's pretty much my summer weekends.
Nice.
I just described.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. 2 last questions and then we'll dive into it. All right. What, if you had like one signature dish, what would it be?
So I do a lot of fusion dishes.
Okay.
So like with Indian dishes and then something else. So I take like inspiration from 2-3 different kinds of cuisines and I mix it up and create something of my own. So I don't necessarily have like names, but you all know butter chicken, right? So it's such a popular dish from India, like butter chicken. So I last weekend we tried something, taking butter chicken and then mixing up with some, Mexican spices and giving it a Mexican flavor with salsa and everything. So I haven't invented a name yet, but it was super tasty.
Nice.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. You'll have to, all right. So you have to start like a food blog then with like the Indian Mexican fusion.
We can do another podcast on that. So.
Yes, there we go. Yeah. The food fusion podcast. Trademark. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Coming soon. Nice. I love it. All right. And then what's been your favorite recent read?
So I am actually reading the book that Michelle Obama wrote, so that's what I've been reading right now. And also another book I just started last week is Satya Nadella's Refresh. The book that Satya wrote, talking about Microsoft culture. So I love that book, not because I work for Microsoft, but because I learned a lot about what type of human Satya Nadella is. Not apart from being a CEO, he talked about his family, his son, and how he kind of ended up being a CEO. What's his vision? And I loved it. I think a lot of his ideologies kind of resonated with mine. What I want to teach to my daughter someday in future. So I absolutely loved it. Highly recommended. Okay. Michelle Obama's Becoming and Satya Nadella's Refresh. Hit Refresh.
Okay. Awesome. Nice. All right. Two awesome book recommendations. All right. Okay. Let's jump into it then. Cause I think we've got some awesome topics that I really want to dive into. getting into product management as a career, and what are some of the ways that we can do that, and just what are important things to be thinking about, and what are some of your experiences? And so I want to start off by just asking, first off, you kind of talked about your experience getting into product. And I think that's super interesting because you talk to anybody who's gotten into product management, and we all, at least most of us, get into it through a whole bunch of different ways, whether that's, starting out in like your background, software development, and then kind of going into it that way, or, just starting out I started out and just kind of fell backwards into it and, came into product management just through complete luck and was just fortunate enough to do it that way. The question that a lot of people have is, how can I get into it? What are some of the things I can be doing to prepare for it? So let's start there. What are some of the most important traits for somebody, or the most important skills for somebody if they want to get into product management as a profession?
Yeah. So I think the beauty of product management is exactly what you said, Kyle, is like people can get into this program from 1,000 different backgrounds, and still they can be like an excellent PM. They can be like really, really good at it. Getting into product management has been very tricky in the sense that this is a program that you don't get to learn about it in school. So it's not like software engineering or like a design degree that that, okay, I have to do A first and then B and then get a job as C. Product management is very, very fluid program per se, right? So for me, when I started studying software engineering, I had no idea what product management role is. And back at that time, I thought I'll be a software engineer for the rest of my life. Like I'll do it because I have studied it in school. I know what this entails. I know that what am I supposed to do when I join a company like Google and Microsoft, that I have to write code and create software. So I had a very clear vision. But then when I spent almost 5 years in this field, I discovered something. And that was probably the turning point in my life, that I am by nature a very extrovert person. Like I thrive on like talking to people, getting to understand them. And I have this nature inbuilt in me, things like, how can I help? Like how can I bring you a solution that would help with something in your life? And when I was a software engineer, I was actually missing that part big time, because I was like, okay, so I'm writing code all day long. I'm getting paid for it. But then I don't know what's happening with my software after I ship it. Like I don't have any visibility with the end user. And I even don't know why I'm writing this software. Like I was just handed down like a design document, right? Or some sort of document. So I was missing that big picture, that why am I developing it? And what's going to happen when I deliver it? Like, did the customer love it? Did I do any mistakes? Could I do something better? So I was missing. So when I was 5 years into engineering, I was like, yeah, I write code. I can do it pretty well, but I'm not satisfied. So, and from that search, I was actually getting into a lot of customer interviews, that how do I get those requirements, right, at the first place? So even before we get into a design doc, how do we know as a company that this is the pain point for our customers? So I try to shadow a lot of our senior PMs, try to kind of like sit in the corner when our company was doing customer interviews and just listen. And somehow I figured out this is something I can do really, really well. So this was a skill set that I didn't necessarily learn in school, but I was actually really good at it. So then I wanted to explore more at how can I leverage this skill set, and that's how I kind of got into the discipline of product. So when I So when I mentor today, like students who want to get into product management, or even, senior professionals who are now trying to change a career track and trying to get into product. So one thing I always say that there is no, like step-by-step 1, 2, 3 guide of like what can get you into product management. I feel like it's more about what you already know, what you are already good at. There are some skills that can be taught for sure, yes, but a good PM I feel like they are always more than, some set of like 5 or 6 skill sets, right? Because when you are interacting with your customers, you have to kind of like take actions as you go, like on the fly. And those kind of things comes from within, like what type of person you are. And there are exercises that you can do to figure out if this is a profession that you would like to go or you would like to kind of like explore on. Maybe one of the things can be how you do with ambiguity. Right? As a software engineer, we are very prescribed to do like step 1, step 2, step 3. This is how you test your piece, and this is how you commit to GitHub, and you are done. Yep. But as a product manager, the whole path is very ambiguous. So how you deal with it? So you kind of maybe do some exercises or some retrospect, some introspect, and just figure out if this is something you are good at. Second is, are you customer obsessed? Customer obsession is another thing that I think each and every PM should kind of take very seriously, because customer is something that we start our feature discussion and we end our feature discussion with. So are you customer obsessed? Like whatever you do in your day-to-day job, do you think of your end user often? Mm-hmm. So that's another skill set, I believe. Third is, do you like working kind of like with your peers, with like your upper level management, kind of like cross-functional? Yep. Do you feel comfortable with it? Because as a PM, we need to wear so many hats and different time that it's always, that interaction is not necessarily always structured, right? We have to talk to someone to get something done, and that person may sit in a completely different org, a completely different team. So do you work with that kind of structure well? And maybe another thing would be, are you data driven? Because data is another like core concept of being a product manager, right? That are you driving all your decisions based on the data that you see today? The other thing I would probably, the last thing I think that's super important is, can you influence people without authority? So a PM needs to work with a group of engineers, engineering managers, your fellow PMs, a lot of crucial customer accounts. And it's not necessary that you will have people reporting up to you, like all of those people reporting to you, right? So you have to have some sort of authority over them by not being their direct manager. You might be just their peer. So that's another skill set that I think is super important. So for any new PMs, if they start thinking on these lines, that these are some of the skills, do I feel comfortable with? Because this is something that comes from within. And then there are some tactical things that one can learn how to do it. But I think these inherent PM skills are super important. At least I found them very valuable when I started to think about my career. Like, do I make a switch and leave software engineering? So this exercise was super helpful for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that all of those are 100% spot on as far as like what are some of the key attributes and skills that product managers need to have in order to really be successful. And you've touched on just some absolute fundamental things, like being able to deal. We were just talking about this recently too, like dealing with ambiguity. Like if you're not somebody who's comfortable with ambiguity, like that's totally fine, but like product is probably not the role for you. Like there are other roles that would probably be a better fit than product management, where like ambiguity is just, like that's like the world that you live in constantly, is just complete ambiguity all the time, and being able to influence without authority, because you literally have you have none. It's all about influencing and the communication and the customer obsession, like you said. So I think that's awesome. So you've talked about that and kind of bringing that together in your career. If somebody was to look at, what they're doing right now, wanting, they feel like that's the case, like that really resonates with them. How would they go about taking their experience and bringing it into a PM role? So let's say that I'm currently outside, doing something different, whether it's somewhat PM related or not exactly, but that really resonates with me. How could I take what I'm doing and use that and get into a product management role?
Sure. Yeah. So there are like a lot of different kinds of, like if you have an internet connection at home, which I'm assuming you do, there are like 100 different things that can kind of help you to walk that last mile and bridge that gap. Some of the things that I would recommend first is, as you get prepared to give product interviews, right? You have to be very like focused on what, like you really have to be comfortable on what a typical product management interview looks like. Because now that I interview a lot of people, like really, really qualified people, I feel like they showed up for the interview without really knowing how a typical product management interview goes. And that's a big no-no for the employer. So one of the first thing I would say is be prepared. If you're confident that you have the skill set necessary, then you have to create a framework to actually prove it in front of your employer, right? So one other thing I can recommend is definitely study the current job market. Figure out what kind of product you feel most passionate about. Is it a B2B product or B2C product? Where do you feel like you will feel like more at ease or more comfortable? Because product can mean a lot of different things. It can be a physical product. It can be a digital product. So you have to do a little bit of market research on that to find your perfect fit. And then second is, definitely tailor your resume. Do not just create like one copy of resume and apply 100 different job positions with it. Study the job description and tailor it based on what kind of relevant experience you already have. Because I feel like your resume is literally the official application that we see, like the employer would see for the first time, right? That's the number one step. So definitely cater your resume based on the skills they are asking for, so that, the employer can literally pick out the skills they wanted and give you like a call for an interview, like make it very appetizing for the employer. And third is LinkedIn. I cannot stress enough what a powerful medium it is in today's date. Definitely reach out to the current employer of that company that you are interested to. See if you can just talk to them, like a coffee chat or some kind of informal chat, to get more insights into those roles. Like what are they exactly asking for, so that when they ask you those point blank questions during your interview, you won't be surprised because you have already come prepared for it. So try to make some connections. If you reach out to 10 people, I'm sure at least 2 or 3 people will be, more than happy to talk to you. So just talk to them. And in general, there are a couple of books that I would highly recommend if you are getting ready for a product interview. One is Cracking the PM Interview. That's the book name. The author is Gail McDowell. She is super famous in like cracking the programming interview. She has another book on software engineering as well. That book was like my Bible when I prepared for my interview. And she will actually teach you how to explain or how to answer very PME type questions. How can you make sure that your skills are well reflected in your answers. And the second book is, I think there is a book called, I forgot the author. It's called Hooked: How You Can Build Habit Forming Products. So definitely read that as well. It will talk about a product development process from end to end. So those are kind of the insights that you can take and tailor your current experience for like a product role that you are really, really hoping for. Because product management has become such a buzzword these days that everybody wants to apply for the product management roles. But these are some of the things that as an employer, we would always look for in the resume, or did you make an effort to connect with some of the team members? Are you prepared for all those insider questions that will show an employer that you are so eager to get that job, your sincerity, and you can talk about your current experience with ease. So these are some of the things that I would highly recommend.
Yeah, I think those are great. Those are great books too. Definitely. We'll put a link in the show notes as well, because those are definitely read. It's been a while since I've read both of those, but have definitely read them a long time ago, and they're definitely worth a read if you haven't. So I think those are great. Absolutely spot on for interview tips and job search tips. Kind of stepping outside of the interview, like if you're looking for a product management role, are there other things like outside of the kind of the job search and the interview that if I'm a new, I'm not in product right now, but I'm looking to kind of break in, are there other things that I could be doing to kind of bolster my chances that you as a hiring manager or hiring team might look at and be like, yeah, this person is really standing out because they're not only obviously interested in doing well in the job search, but they also are doing some of these extra things. What might some of those extra things be in your mind, or that somebody might be doing?
I think number one would be, why don't you volunteer? Because if you go to websites like angel.com, there is like a list of startups, right? Very early stage startups who are actually looking for help. So if you think you can help and you want some practice, why don't you talk to a few of these startup companies and see if you can, show up maybe a couple of weeks or like a month and try to build something in the way, because a portfolio is probably the ultimate thing that an employer would be looking for. So you can start building those portfolios by volunteering to like startups, or even build something for your friend. Just build something. You don't need to learn coding or programming of any sort. You have to just put on that product management hat and try to experience how it feels, right? And I'm also a big advocate of sharing. So as you take this journey, why don't you write a blog post about it? Or maybe just record a YouTube video? Because all of these things will show an employer that you are ready to go that extra mile. So if you are working on a hobby project, upload it in your GitHub profile. If you are, learning something new, just write a Medium post or a LinkedIn post and ask folks to review it and give you feedback. So these are not small things, but these are some of the skills that I see often neglected. Like people, if we see that as an employer, if we find that, this guy has like a GitHub link with like 5-6 different projects that he literally spent hours on, and he's also volunteering with these 2 groups and building something from scratch, that tells a lot about that particular candidate. So building something, volunteering somewhere, and also like take any product, any app that you use today and try to tear it apart. What do you like about that app? What don't you like about the app? If you are the PM of that particular app, what are some of the things that you want to change? And share all those thoughts out in the open. If you have an internet connection, as I said, it's so easy to reach thousands of people.
Yep.
Just share it that I just, played around with Uber app, or Facebook app or something, anything. And these are some of the things that I would improve. These are some of my ideas. So these are I think few things that if any person do it with like honesty and with due diligence, these actually show during your interview. And these are also great talking points when you are talking to your employer, that, this is what I did. This is my portfolio. Check it out. And this helps a lot in the job interview and hiring process overall.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely love that. I think those are some absolute amazing tips. And the fact, like diving into the mind of a product manager, especially for some popular apps or different products, is if you haven't done that before, it's a great exercise. And honestly, like if you're in product, you end up doing it all the time anyway, like going through and asking like, why did they make these decisions? And just, I feel like I do it all the time. Like, why are these things the way they are? And you end up first off criticizing a lot of the decisions that, other product teams make, but then you take it multiple levels deeper and end up thinking like, what are the trade-offs that they're making here? Because it's not just that people are careless. As product managers, we realize that like almost nobody is terrible, making terrible product decisions. Everybody's making trade-offs. Like, what are those trade-offs? And like really thinking through, they did this thing for a reason. Was it because of a deadline? Was it because, they had to make a trade-off for another area within their application, or, they were driving, trying to drive a certain metric over another metric, like really thinking through those types of things. It's a good exercise to go through, especially if you're new to that sort of thing. So that's really good advice.
Absolutely. And also like these exercises will actually give you an opportunity to rethink whether you want to be a product manager or not, right? Because as I said, like product management has become a buzzword. Like everyone wants to become a PM, but these exercises will actually show you that if you are the right candidate, if this is the right job for you. Because if you are getting frustrated with like dealing with all the ambiguity and like with all these feature details, or like, wearing so many hats, then probably this is not the right kind of job that you would like.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You touched on another really interesting point. And, this kind of touches on your career too. In, getting into product, you came from a background of technical expertise. A lot of people now are coming from either, an area of technical expertise or an area of, other business, possibly like an MBA or other business expertise. I see a lot of people asking about, specific product certifications or those types of things. So we'll pose the question to you, do you have to have a degree in computer science or an MBA or some other very specific background to get into product? What are your thoughts?
The answer is no. No, you definitely do not need a computer science degree or an MBA degree to get into product management. That being said, I will never say that you shouldn't do it. Like all of these education, a formal training has their own benefits. So this kind of program also teaches you how to think, how to solve problems. But I believe as long as you are aware that studying an MBA or a certification is not what you need to get into PM, like it's not all, it's a part of it. And you still choose to go with the program, it's 100% all right, because you will definitely learn something. But at the end of the day, being a PM is so much more than that. And I don't think any particular one degree or one course can teach you all of those skills. So yeah, like my short answer would be, on one hand, I wouldn't say that you shouldn't do any of this. You can definitely do it. I did my master's in computer science and I never regret it. Because I learned so many skill sets in a graduate school that I didn't in my undergraduate program. And that still helps me, taking my decisions today on a day-to-day basis. But on the other hand, was it all I needed to become a technical PM? No. I had to learn so many things about how to talk to customers, how to think from a business hat and not from an engineering hat. And it also depends on what kind of product you are working on, right? If it's a technical product, then it has a different sets of challenges. If it's a non-technical product, it has, again, a different sets of challenges. So you kind of have to adapt based on the company, the product, the team. But yeah, like MBA and certification is not the final answer. No.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely agree. So kind of going back to, some of the interview and resume and, some of that aspect, you gave, I think, some really good advice and tips. What are some, I guess, pitfalls or mistakes to look out for as you're going through that process?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because and now that I'm on the other side of the table, I do get to see different kinds of resumes. Yeah. And there are definitely 3 or 4 things that I can mention today that everyone should avoid at any cost if they want to really, really give good interviews. First is bad formatting. You really need to put some time on formatting it well, making it to the point, not like a 4-page resume. I think at this point of our career, and I one of my mentor in my graduate school, he told me that most of the time, if you cannot fit your resume within like 1 full page, you probably don't understand what you are doing right now. You probably don't know how to shorten it. And I really I found it very amusing and fun, everything. You really need to know how to shorten it and focus on what matters. So definitely try to avoid submitting a 4-page resume. No, we don't need it. Second is, and the second point would be not to tailor the resume based on the job profile. I have touched on it before earlier. So don't just submit a very generic resume for all your job positions because it shows that you haven't put the needed effort. You haven't done your research and you don't want to put any extra time. So just tailor it. And the third kind of resume that I see is full of keywords. It's in 1 page, I can see 100 keywords with comma. So not even full sentences. Yep. Don't do it. Because if you really understand that technology, if you really understand that skill set, there will be projects to prove it. And so you just don't use keywords for the sake of it. It really during interview, it shows that you do not really understand, and that's a really bad impression. So be very honest and truthful, because your resume should be a mirror of who you are, and so do not exaggerate it too much. That's probably the highlights mistakes that I see. We definitely look into the accomplishment section, that what you accomplished in your past jobs. And that's one section that's I see very tricky for a lot of us because people tend to write paragraphs of accomplishments, but it should be, instead of just use numbers, maybe I increased the profit level by 12%. Instead of using, I helped it to get better or something very ambiguous. The more to the point you become, the more you use numbers and statistics of what you did from your past work. I think those are some very, very valuable things that the employer would look for in your resume.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I think that's so good. You got to remember that you're talking to people in your resume and in your interview. And so it's not just a keyword thing that at some point somebody's actually going to be reading it and going through. That's a great call out. We touched on this a little bit earlier. the helping our teams become diverse and inclusive, we use those terms a lot. We use them, and I think that it's so important. We talked a little bit about this a while ago on our podcast, and we can't have good products, at least in my opinion, in our opinion, if we don't have teams that are inclusive. And Eva gave an example of this where, we don't build products that have good experiences if we don't have teams that are diverse enough to have the right mindset. And, she gave the example of the forms for one of the banks that she used had a first name and a last name, which is very American centric. And not everybody who lives here, conforms to a first name and a last name in that way. She's one of those people, being from Hong Kong. We have lots of nationalities who live here, and that's just the way it is. If that product team had other people on it, they probably would have caught that idea that, not everybody has, a first name and a last name. And it's that sort of thing that, goes across all of our products. So that's just like one example among many. But how do we help bring more inclusion and more diversity into our teams, both through our hiring and through, and how do we help, those who, might not feel like they can apply or might not feel like they have the right skill sets, get ready to get into product management. So, I think you've got some experience in this. What are your thoughts on both sides of that coin?
Yeah, so this is a very sensitive topic, right? Because a lot of people who are experiencing a lot of biases and a lot of discrimination because of this. Like you quoted that example, and I remember one. I don't remember where I read it, but have you heard of the story that there is like in a washroom there was a tap where you have to kind of like wave your hand and the tap will start pouring water. Mm-hmm. There was a black person who went into that bathroom and he was constantly waving in front of it, but it didn't work. Yeah. And later the product company found out that only white people have literally tested that product. It was never tested against people with different skin color. Yep. So those are some of the things that I feel like it's affecting us on a day-to-day basis these days, right? These are very sad experiences. So like you said, it's two sides of the coin. So companies, they have to maybe meet us in the halfway doing their part. And we as an individual, we have to do our part. It's a literally 50-50, partnership on how we can tackle this challenge. So company wise, I can see being in this domain for almost 7-8 years, I'm definitely seeing a lot of companies stepping up in their hiring process where they actually tell the recruiters that the minority companies, not necessarily only women, but the minority companies just, start your search from there. If we cannot find anyone, then we will definitely expand our scope, but give them the first opportunity. So all of the teams, they have their own goals of making their own teams diverse, maybe by the end of the year, by the end of the quarter, some sort of, targets like that. So I definitely see companies are hiring more with intention, and it's not just random hiring anymore. So that's good. We definitely have a long way to go, but it's a start. On the other hand, as an individual, when I do these mentoring sessions, this is a very common question, especially from women, that, we are not good enough. I don't think we can crack this job. This is not for us. And most of the time they end up taking a very menial job with very minimum salary, all of the sad things. So I always like tell them a couple of things. First, as a person, not like necessarily as a product manager, we have to get comfortable with this imposter syndrome, because this is real, and imposter syndrome doesn't differentiate between a white man or a black man. All of us have it. You have it, I have it, pretty much everyone I know, somewhere down there they feel like, oh no, I don't think I'm good enough for this. So it's something, it's a very human feeling, it's a very natural feeling. So I think in most cases women tend to take it more seriously rather than the main counterpart, so they get affected more in a more diverse way. So being comfortable with your own skin, your own accent, your like I can tell you like thousands of stories. Like girls come up to me and say that, ma'am, I have a very different accent and I feel so ashamed when I talk in front of American. And then I feel so sad because I have an accent too. I'm from India, and that's bound to happen. I was not born here. So I always say that if you have an accent, that actually means you know a few other languages as well.
Yep.
So why don't you think like that way, that if I have an accent in English, it's probably because I can speak 4 other languages. So it's all about confidence. So when you are starting out your career, it might feel like you are not good enough. You don't have the necessary exposure. So many talented people are walking around, so nobody is going to talk to you, and a lot of different kinds of feelings. But one thing that would help is educate yourself. Just read about biases, read about what's happening, and talk to your peers, because that helps a lot. COVID actually made things a little bit difficult now that on all the in-person events are closed. But before, I used to do a lot of meetups where we would all come together and just share our experiences. So when, you stand up and share your experience, and then immediately 10 other people in the room, they will kind of like sympathize over you, and they'll be like, oh, I have the same experience too. So this is not unique to me. This is happening to everybody. Yep. And that's a vote of confidence that this is not personal to you. This is a common problem that we can solve, like we can come together and solve it. So start talking about it, read books about it, educate yourself, write about it. Now that we are not meeting for like people in person, why don't you write about it in LinkedIn that I experienced this? I'm pretty sure that 500 other people will jump in and say that, oh, this is very common. I have experienced it too. Yep. So confidence is actually probably the only thing that will help you to take the next step. There will be a lot of self-doubt, a lot of, negative things that will come in the way. But if you are constantly talking about it, creating a support group around yourself who can support you, vouch for you, and kind of give you that last push, I think we all can do it.
Yeah. That's so great. Definitely. I feel like there's so much, we may have to just like take that whole topic and do another episode on it, because I feel like there's so much there, but I agree completely with that. Yeah. I love everything about that topic, how we can make our teams more diverse, more inclusive, and how we can use that to make our products more inclusive for everybody. But as far as the imposter syndrome goes, like we literally, everybody has it. And if you don't feel, I feel like, there was a great quote that if you don't feel, and I forget who says it or who said it, but it was from a while ago. It was like, if you don't feel imposter syndrome, then you probably are an imposter. And so like, I don't know, that just like resonated, because I was like, yeah, that's because everybody feels that. And you just, especially when you're coming into something new and you're surrounded by lots of intelligent people, and that's like product development to a T. You're surrounded by just intelligent people who are coding and in business and, designing and all of that. And you feel like out of your depth and out of your league. And that's literally I assume everybody, I know it's definitely me. Like I constantly feel like, oh man, I am just out of my depth.
Me too.
And you're just surrounded by people who are just really, really smart. And so you're going to feel that way for a while until you realize like, okay, you can do it. And you aren't the person you're not the only person out of your depth, and you are in fact smarter than you think you are. So, it just takes, like you said, the confidence to, take those first steps. And unfortunately, there are, just different groups, like you said, that who probably feel like they're too much on the outside to have enough confidence to get there. And we have to do more to make sure that we're not excluding, because that it only makes our companies and our products worse if we don't have them represent, if we don't have all of us represented in what we're doing. Because like you said, then we have taps, water taps that don't recognize different skin colors, and we have fields in forms that don't represent everybody in our countries, and that just makes for a terrible product experience, and that's not what we want.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I want to wrap up with one final question, unless you have anything else to add to our conversation.
Oh, I can add a lot more things, but then we have to do a second episode of that.
I think we could easily do a second episode. So we will come back and we'll do a second episode, because there's just been a ton here, and this has just been absolutely great. Okay. All right. Episode 2 coming at some point here. But what has been your favorite moment in your career?
I think my favorite moment is not. Yeah, I think I definitely have a favorite moment, but it's not necessarily related to product, but it's more like kind of like mix of D&I and product. So the example that I quoted, that the girl who came up to me and said that I have a very bad accent. So she was having a very challenging time in her life with all the kind of like lack of confidence and super inferiority complex and all of those stuff. So she was having a hard time. So I became her mentor, and she worked with me for about 6 months. I would say she's from Vietnam. And she eventually kind of prepared herself for product interviews. She eventually, built that courage to actually apply for Fortune 500 companies that she initially thought she's not good of. So it was a long path. We worked it together. And on month 7, she actually got a job in Google. So she's currently employed in Google. She recently moved from Vietnam to the Bay Area. She's now there. So she's kind of like a story in my life that I always look back when I'm struggling, because I feel like if she can walk this path all by herself with a little bit of help from me, then I can probably do anything sitting here in Vancouver. And I kind of feel thankful for all the privileges that I have today that she didn't have when she reached out to me, sent an email asking for help. So I think that's a very kind of like a very highlighting moment in my career. It doesn't necessarily relate it to a particular product or a particular company, but just in my journey, I feel it gives me a really good feeling that I was able to help someone to walk the path with me and see the other side of the world, that imposter syndrome is not end. There is so much to it. Like if you can conquer it, there is just too many possibilities. That's awesome. Yeah, sometimes the best, especially when you get into some of the management and leadership roles, some of the best outcomes are the people that you get to help. So thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely awesome. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? I think one final thought would be, you can, like, all of us can do product management. And I believe that in our day-to-day life, all of us, especially now that we are kind of all working from home with our kids and, so much stuff going on around us, but we are still making decisions every day, right? Whether it is like what my kid's gonna eat tonight, to like how can I meet my deadline at work. So I think especially in 2020 and 2021, all of us have become product managers of some sort. So if we just keep honing that skill and figure out what are some of the things that I really enjoyed doing over the past 2 stressful years, and what are some of the things that like didn't excite me at all, I think it will be a very good exercise for all of us on what we can become in the future, in the post-COVID era. Because product management, as I said, like in the very beginning, it's not always mathematics. It's not 1 + 1 2. It's a mix of science and arts. So you get to show a lot of creativity from your side. So yeah, just keep working on it. Just do some introspective sessions and figure out who you are as a person. I think that will guide you to choose the right career going forward.
Okay. That's awesome. Great place to end it. So what we've got, we'll do some product shout outs and gripes to end it. But before we go there, is there, I guess, where can people find more about you or connect with you?
So I'm super active on social media. Maybe we can post my LinkedIn links and Twitter. If you have any questions, you can just tweet me, send me a DM. I'll be more than happy to do a follow-ups and help you there. Okay,
awesome. Yeah, we'll put those links in the show notes, and so check those out. Okay, perfect. All right. So we usually end with any product shout outs or gripes that you may have. I don't know if did you bring any product shout outs or gripes that you have been using lately and either loving or hating?
So I can give a shout out to a product that I use probably on a daily basis for like multiple hours in a day. And that is Twitch.
Oh, so, okay. Nice.
Yes. So when I started watching Twitch, a lot of friends were like, how do you enjoy this app? Like, do you really like people, like looking at people who are playing video games and when it's not you? But somehow it caught up to me because I feel like we do the same thing when we watch television, right? It's like other people are playing or other people are acting and we watch them. So Twitch is so I spend so many hours in looking into like other software engineers on how they code. Yep. So that has been an amazing experience for me. I think I learned a lot by just watching the type of mistakes they do, and it also helped me a lot with my inferiority complex, my imposter syndrome. That, the guys or the influencers that I really look up to in the software engineering world, they are making mistakes. Like it's possible. So it's not that bad when I mess up something. Yeah. So I think Twitch has helped in so many different ways. So it was like a miracle idea. Like the PM who came up with this idea, it was fantastic. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Nice. All right. Do you stream it all on Twitch or you just...
I used to, but after I had my daughter, I stopped, but I'm planning to start again. Yes.
Okay. Very nice. All right. Great. Well, that's a great shout out. All right. I'll do a shout out too to Procreate. So the drawing app on iPad. I was using Adobe Photoshop Sketch for a long time and loved it. And they have end of lifed it. And I'm so sad because it was so simple. And they've forced everybody to go to Adobe Fresco. I'm one of those two. And it's so much more complicated. And I tried it and I could not wrap my head around it. And so I finally, if you do any drawing on the iPad, like I'm sure almost everybody has Procreate because it's like the drawing app, but I just hadn't used it because I'm not like a super artist on the iPad. So I hadn't bought it before, but it is just awesome. Like it's super simple, but also super powerful. So absolutely amazing drawing app on the iPad. I've been using it for a little while now, and it's so good. Like I went in there after my like fiasco of Adobe Fresco, and because I went in there just to do some sketches, and I was like, I don't even know, like I can't use it. Like it was so complicated, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in here. And so I went over to purchased Procreate, used it, and it was just so simple and it was beautiful. So shout out to that. That was a great one. So yeah, awesome. Well, Piyali, thank you so much again for being here. This was an absolutely great conversation. I look forward to chatting again with you. You've been absolutely amazing. All of the tips I think have been spot on. I think people will listen to this and just get so much information from it. So I look forward to talking again, and thank you so much for all of your insight. It's been absolutely
thanks
great.
For the invite, Kyle. Absolutely loved the experience. I hope some of the things that I shared would be helpful. And as I said, I'm super reachable in social media. So if anybody wants any follow-up on anything I have said or discussed, please reach out. I'm happy to answer. And thank you. This was an amazing experience.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks, everyone.
Right.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can find out more about us and our podcast on our website at productbydesign.co. You can also follow us on Twitter at prodbydesign. That's at prod_by_design. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Larry Evans, and you can also find Eva on Twitter at Yan Chow Chow. See you next time.